right, so we've kind of jumped around. This is like one of those movies where you start in the middle, because we heard about how you met, and we went back and heard your testimony. Before or after you guys met, when did you feel called to the ministry, Jim, and how did that call go?
So as I mentioned, I got saved as a young boy. There was a gap in my spiritual growth. I continued to attend church, but I really wasn't really thriving in my spiritual life. Our church called the youth pastor, and I love my dad, but I wanted permission to do some other things. So I said, well, if I go on, they were going to do a youth retreat. I said, if I go on this youth retreat, I'll get some brownie points, because he wanted me to go. So I went on a youth retreat. I was 16.
So this was about 8 or 9 years after you became
right,
Christian? Okay.
Right. And I went on this youth retreat, really just kind of to make my dad happy.
Mm.
And while we were there, we were at a place up in the north of Maryland called Summit Lake. The youth pastor was speaking. We were in this little cabin. There was 2 candles lit, and he was talking about your life in eternity. And he was talking about how eventually your life will go out and there's still eternity. And he says to this day, he didn't do anything to manipulate. The candle went out. It was representing our lives.
Mm.
And just that moment, it just hit me so powerful. What am I doing with my life? And on that retreat, I rededicated my life. And I can't explain to you how powerful that experience was, other than the fact that it just made me come home and become a different person. Mm. And the good thing is our youth pastor was just a really dynamic guy who really got us involved in ministry. So we were going to nursing homes and detention centers and different places ministering. And when I would do it, people would say, you should be a pastor. Mm. And it was kind of a crescendo. People in the church, seniors and others would say, you should be a pastor. And it just, over time, it was just clear God was calling me, and I was loving ministry. And so by the time I got into my senior year of high school, I told my parents, I feel called into the ministry. And no one was surprised when I said that. My youth pastor had been saying, Jim, I believe you're called. And so I chose to go to a Bible school to study theology. And the whole time I was in school, and even before that, I was teaching Sunday school. I was teaching Sunday school for middle schoolers when I was in high school. Wow. Wow. I taught the 7th grade. Boy, that was a challenge. They tested every strain of my patience. But anyway, it was so while I was in college, I continued to teach and preach and take every opportunity. So it's just been a thing that was so clear and so natural to me. And honestly, in my life, there's nothing else I've really felt as passionate about as being involved in ministry, loving and nurturing people, encouraging them, and sharing the gospel and seeing people come to know Christ.
Elaine, how about you as a believer, as a wife and a mother of 2 men that I greatly respect and admire, Aaron and Jesse? And I recently, it's amazing. I've known you guys for, I think, about 17 years, and I just got to meet Olivia, who you talk about all the time. And so that was pretty neat to meet them. But what's it been like for you to be the wife, mother in the ministry? What's that been like?
Certainly had its challenges. Mm. When Jim and I first got married, we agreed that, I have my degree in nursing, but we agreed when we had children, I would stay home, even if that meant we lived, on a very meager budget. Mm. And we did live on a very meager budget. We were below the poverty line for years.
I've heard some stories from Aaron and Jesse. They were fun times. You guys had fun though. You made that you always somehow made that work for you guys, and they had great memories of it.
Right. I came from, my mother stayed home. My dad was a professor. Like I said, his mother and dad both worked. Mm. And so being from having that experience, he said, I would like you to stay home. And honestly, really, even though I got my nursing degree, all I wanted to be was a mother, truly. I mean, and it's, I have a nurturing side to me, so it played to that well. But so knowing when we got married that he was going to be in ministry, we did have some counseling with our pastor, who gave us some tips about ministry, and they were helpful. I didn't quite understand all of them at the time. They played out quite true. Right. I would say I was I felt like I was called to take care of the home so that he was free to minister. And honestly, it was for a lot of years, he worked a ton of hours. I can't even tell you. And he would help, when he could, but I was always thankful. God definitely took care of us financially so that he could have that freedom to minister. So I feel like that was my calling, was to the family, so that he could be more effective in his ministry.
And then I want to bring you guys back to a little more recent history. Jim, there was a lunch that you and Rick went to, and we started talking about, we know that it's a priority for us to build community in Caroline County. And we kind of talked about, where do we go first? Youth pastor, music minister, associate pastor. We need another pastor on staff. But for us as elders, the priority was to build community in Caroline County. And then about that time, we started talking about you, and you met with Rick. Do you remember that lunch and what you guys talked about? And because I want to tell you is that when Rick came back from that lunch, we had no doubt that we had made the right, or God had put upon us the right call of you.
Oh, wow. I don't know, I'm getting so emotional today. I'm sorry, friends. Truth is, I was having lunch with Rick as a friend. And probably the greatest blessing for me to be able to join River Rock is that Rick was already my friend. But we had lunch as a friend, and we had a long conversation about a lot of things. We were talking about all kinds of stuff and what God had been teaching me. And I was the interim pastor at a church out at Lake Anna, and how that was going. And almost the end of conversation, he says, well, I want to talk to you about something else. And I'm going like, okay. And he says, well, we've been praying for a while, and we really feel like you'd be an asset to our team. And then he started talking to me about what it is they were looking for. And when he started listing the things he was looking for, I felt like that was the area that I'm the most passionate about. You can make yourself do anything for a while.
Sure.
And I will. I take seriously, Scripture says a man that doesn't support his family is an infidel. And so I'll do it. There's nothing below me. I'll clean ditches, dig ditches, paint houses or barns even. Rick Morrow let me paint his barn. All that to say, we were looking at what God wanted us to do, and God kept shutting doors. And we were willing. In fact, we stepped down believing God was calling us overseas as a missionary. And when Rick shared that with me, it just immediately sensed like, wow, God, you're going to let me do what I love to do. Like the desire of my heart. So it was honestly very exciting to me. And I'm sure when I came home that day, I told my wife, you can't believe this. Rick has talked to me about coming on staff. And I was thrilled.
Elaine, do you remember that conversation and then some of the conversations afterwards? What were your thoughts when you heard that we were interested in bringing Jim on staff?
Well, like he said, we had been through a process of about, at that point, it was about a little over a year of searching, God, what's our next step? Because we had, given God a blank check, and we walked out in faith, believing he was going to answer that. And then we did have like doors and windows and opportunities. Just, we went to many states actually, searching, God, is this it? And either it was we just didn't have peace about it. It was just, so when he came home and he said to me, I thought, oh, how was your lunch with Rick? And he's like, well, you're not gonna believe this. I'm like, okay. And he said, he's talked to me about maybe coming on staff. And I'm like, what? What? I mean, you pray expecting God to answer prayers. Never know how he's going to answer those prayers. And so I was shocked. I was like, but there was like some immediate confirmation in my spirit that this is what God was wanting us to do. And he just took us on a long journey to get there because you guys weren't ready and we didn't know what was ahead, but God knew what was ahead. And so he left us stay out on this journey and, stretched us in many ways. Taught us, more lessons than you want to learn.
We had many conversations where, every once in a while we go, well, what about Jim? He's going to be a pastor down south, and he's probably not interested. But every one of us just kept kind of we felt God was pressing us, and that this was the right decision for us. And so I've said this a number of times. I've said it, in private. I think I've said it maybe from the pulpit a couple of times, that I just felt like God protected you guys for us to bring you to our team. And so I'm very thankful. And you basically answered the question. I didn't have to ask it, that God stretched you over this period of time. But I've never seen, I'm a young man, but I've never seen a reception like you guys got when we announced you guys, and the response on Facebook. Every time we met with somebody, we kind of met with different groups of people to let them know this was a big deal for us as a new church, bringing on an associate pastor. We met with the deacons. They're all just bubbling with excitement. We met with different couples that are part of our leadership team. Just, we want you to know, we don't want you to hear from somebody else. And everybody was so excited. So I know he says before, and it bears repeating for me, is that you were probably the first person outside of, I guess, the farmers who we already knew that I met in Fredericksburg. You came to my house 4 houses ago, and you stood in my living room, and we were not sure, like, we were young marrieds. The baby was crying. We had dinner on the stove, and you pulled out a pamphlet, and you just kind of asked us about ourselves, and then said, I think you should try this class with Jeff and Pam Smith. And I mean, so there are no coincidences. Like the doors, the windows, all those closing and shutting. I think God orchestrates all those things, and God's in control of all those things. God brought you in my living room. It wasn't an accident that you spoke the words Jeff Smith, and still today I'm serving, and he's one of my closest friends right now here in Fredericksburg. And so very thankful this is where we are. And so I know you know this because everyone's said it 100 times. We are so excited to have you serving with us. And I know that you guys are working now. You're looking at places down in Caroline County, right? How's that going? Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we're very excited. We'd love to have the next step finished. You know, our house now is under contract. We're praying that all the details get worked out. We haven't found one that we feel led to put a contract on, but we're hopeful that the next couple of months will lead to something, and we'll know it's the right one when we walk in. But yeah, we'd love to be moved already, but just hadn't happened yet.
Well, it's great having you guys, and I appreciate you guys spending some time with us tonight here on the podcast. That's all the time we have. We are going to figure out the next steps in terms of the podcast, what we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. We kind of took a break off, and then we talked about the budget, and now this is one we've been looking forward to doing for a while. So thanks for joining us. As always, thank you to my wife and helping produce this podcast and teach me how to do this end of it. But we look forward to seeing you next time.